Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants.
Welcome back to the Fort Worth 148 Masonic Podcast. My name is Evee Kirkendall. I'm a past master and chaplain of Fort Worth 148.
I am Brandy Patton, current Worshipful Master of Fort Worth 148.
And this is Cody Cox, current Senior Warden of Fort Worth Lodge number 148.
Well, welcome back, gentlemen. It's great to have you around the table again. It's been a couple of weeks since we've recorded together. I know that we've had some great episodes and still a couple others that are still in our pocket that are waiting to be released. So I'm waiting to get some feedback about those things. And of course, if our listener from North Korea has any feedback, I would be super excited to hear their feedback.
And we'd like a signed picture, please.
Yes, please.
And we can translate it, so do it in your code.
Google Translate
That's right.
works.
Hey, we
we
got
can
you
figure it
taken
out.
care of. We'll find
And thanks on not destroying my icky Windows machine.
Yeah, we did. I suffered through the touching of the Windows machine.
None of my toys were broken.
For those of you that are listening and wondering what we're babbling on about, so we had to record a podcast without the fearless leader Brandy with us, and we know that there's some people in our midst that do not like anything other than Apple products. So when we were recording
His
this,
name's Sean.
when we were recording the last episode, it kind of looked like Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey 2001.
I felt like I was trying to interact with Hal as I was activating the various buttons on that computer.
Making grunting sounds and just like poking things.
And
I
the
needed some hand sanitizer.
listeners can't see it, but my Ultra S25 is sitting next to two iPhones, next to my Samsung laptop. So
Right. So yeah, it was we survived the Samsung
I'm Team
and
Android.
PC experience. So and I suppose that I'm the better for it, although I don't feel the better for it. So well, today, gentlemen, we've got a great episode coming up. We've got some current events to talk about from across the pond. But we wanted to start off today with a kind of a bullpen roundup of an interesting topic about how we view our members in terms of EA, Fellowcraft, and Master Masons. What makes someone a member? And I've heard through my various travels and in being part of a couple of different lodges, people have different perspectives on this. And I thought it would be a great idea for us to talk about that. So
Let's start with breaking down the acronyms. EA is an entered apprentice. FC is a Fellowcraft Mason. Master Mason, Evee. The thing at the end, though, is they're all Masons. They are Masons. That's in the law book. We're going to read that here exactly, word for word here shortly.
Right. But there are certain rights and privileges that different degrees have that they only get upon conferral of certain degrees. And for instance, voting is one of the big ones. We all know that EAs can attend meetings and interact and give feedback if the lodge is so suited to do so.
Well, they can vote. We just ignore them.
If they stick their hands up, we're gonna
They'll be
stick the
chastised.
goat after them. So
The goat's another thing I want to talk about. We'll get to that.
okay. But I have heard members from other jurisdictions and even in our own lodge suggest that entered apprentice Masons aren't members or that they aren't Masons yet. And I thought that was kind of a fruitful subject of conversation. We kind of talked a little bit about it before we started recording today, but what are y'all's thoughts about these, Brandy and Cody?
Well, I mean, we always hear the phrase like once a Mason, always a Mason, and I've heard that I've heard that used with guys that were EAs that fell out. We haven't seen in a while. And I've heard that term, I've heard that phrase used to kind of encourage guys that are feeling that they're not necessarily part of the fold anymore to return to the fold. It's, sometimes we hear in like Christian circles the idea of you cannot lose your salvation type thing. So that's kind of where my mind wanders when I hear this idea of, what is a Mason?
Sure. What about you, Brandy? What thoughts are kind of bubbling up in your head about this?
So we're very protective of all of our members, especially the inner apprentices and fellow crafts. That's one of the big problems with not going through the degrees is you can't affiliate with another lodge. You don't like us anymore, you want to go somewhere else? Well, tough. We have to vote unanimously for you to leave. Until you're Master Mason, then you can do whatever you want. It's just, we put work into you. We're invested in you. We expect you to stick around. And we want to raise everybody that walks through the door, essentially. So that's kind of how I feel about that. We think about that a little more.
Yeah. I know that as we were talking about this before we started recording, that the idea that there are these kind of like two tiers of our membership. There's the voting member tier, and then there's the non-voting member tier. But we're all Masons. But yet still, let's be honest, there are more than just voting rights, I think, in most lodges that separate a Master Mason from an entered apprentice or a fellow craft. In our lodge, I know that we try to include as many entered apprentices and fellow crafts into everything we do. We frequently open on an EA degree. We invite our entered apprentices to hang out with us, for fellowshipping and things of that nature. But at the same time, they are still part of another tier that is not
They don't have
Master Mason.
They don't have anywhere near the skin in the game that we do.
Right.
Yet.
They don't. But I think it's more than that. I think it's also about the responsibilities that each degree brings with it.
Well, realistically, if you're going to apprentice, your sole goal should be to be proficient, move to the next level. Don't be distracted by helping the stewards, helping clean out. We want you to do that, but we don't expect you to do that. The only reason you're there is to learn your work, to get ready to be a Master Mason.
Absolutely. And I also think, I don't know, as I'm kind of thinking through this, I recognize that the obligations that we take are completely different as we move through the degrees. And obviously, everyone who is a Master Mason knows why we can't go much deeper than that.
Yeah. Right.
But there is something that is much different about being a Master Mason than being a fellow craft or an EA, even that goes way beyond just voting rights.
Well, I think what we're also talking about here I want to make sure that people understand when I use the word maturity, I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about experience. For me, when I think about, again, this idea of a tiered system, we're talking about Masonic maturity. When you're an EA, you are very short on Masonic maturity. So if we were going to allow EAs to vote, then what we're talking about here is the idea of, are they mature enough to vote? And the answer to that, of course, is going to be no, they're not. Fellow crafts have a little more Masonic maturity than EAs, but they still haven't gotten everything, that a Master Mason has. And heck, even if we're talking about Masonic maturity, let's talk about that next level. At Grand Lodge, if you have not been voted in as a master of a lodge and have not served in that position, then you don't have the Masonic maturity to vote as a member of the Grand West. So we're all Masons, but again, there's this kind of, as you were saying, Evie, this tiered system of Masonic maturity.
And tiers might be the wrong word, because I realize that we all view those sorts of distinctions as kind of not ideal. Maybe it might be better to think of circles of influence, or circles of that we get to go be a part of.
Just say it, Evie. It's the Masonic caste system is what it is.
Those untouchable EAs.
So with talking about this, I'll just refer everyone. If you've never looked at the law book on this,
570.
it's an
Yeah.
ungodly amount of pages. But if you will,
About a third of which needs to go away.
right, I'm referring to Article 344, which is the status of EAs and fellowcrafts. If you've never read this before, a couple of things of note is one that it says specifically, entered apprentices and fellowcrafts are masons, but they are not members of the lodge and cannot vote or demit, but shall be entitled to Masonic burial subject to the provisions of Article 360. So again, they are masons. They can receive a Masonic burial. The only thing is that they cannot vote. They haven't received that yet.
And that's very analogous, just to point that to underscore this, that's very analogous to the way any Mason who is not a past master is as it relates to the Grand Lodge. That everybody is a Mason, but until you become a past master, you are not a member, a voting member of Grand Lodge.
Absolutely. So as we kind of go down, another thing, entered apprentices and fellowcrafts may attend Masonic funerals and appear in public wearing aprons of their respective degrees, provided the lodge has dispensation to appear in public and they do not participate in any of the ceremonies. So they can have kind of like this outward appearance of a Mason, but their outward appearance must reflect the highest degree that they have obtained, and they cannot participate in any of those ceremonies because we know the ceremonies are meant to be conducted by Master Masons. A couple other things here. They're not allowed to serve pro tem in the offices of secretary and treasurer, and are not permitted to fulfill the required duties of either position. And then the other thing is that they can serve in those positions during a degree in which they are a member. So, for instance, EAs can serve as the secretary or treasurer during an EA degree. Same thing with fellowcrafts. They can do that. But again, they can't hold those offices. They can't be appointed pro tem to those offices. That's a no-no. So again, if you for those of us that are in the grand jurisdiction of Texas, if you want to find this, it's Article 344 where you have that. So feel free to go and look there.
And I think that as we were preparing for this episode, I think that we all kind of landed on the fact that the Grand Lodge Law Book is very explicit about this, that they are Masons. They are just not members of a lodge. And there are certain things that they are entitled to and are not entitled to.
The burial rights is a recent Grandmaster's decision too, I believe. No, recent in the last decade for entered apprentice. Does yours have the Grandmaster's decision?
Yeah, I've got Grandmaster's decisions in here. What were we talking about?
The burial for entered apprentice and fellowcrafts. It's a fairly recent development, if I remember correctly.
Keep talking amongst yourselves. Let me look real quick.
Yeah. So I find that really interesting, though, as the way that many of our lodges interact with entered apprentices and fellowcrafts, because I know that there are some lodges that have made the decision that until you become a Master Mason, you are like there's nothing you can do except for come to the lodge, learn the work, and then turn it back in, and then leave.
we're still a fraternity. They're still brothers. We still hang out and have fun. There's just certain things like we discussed they can't do, and we can't let them be exposed to.
But what I mean by that is that there are some lodges that go above and beyond that. They say, unless you're a Master Mason, you don't even get to hang out with us.
Well,
if we're gonna have a fellowshipping event, you don't get to be a part of it unless you're a Master Mason.
When did the law change where they could attend stated meetings?
Right.
That's fairly recent too. Last 20 years, if I remember correctly.
Right.
We're gonna make Cody be our junior warden tonight. You should
Right.
know that thing
Digging through.
forward and backwards.
And I think that if I were a betting man, I would suspect that some of those changes are in fact due to the shrinking membership of many lodges that they require. If they want to open up, they might need an EA or two to.
Not going to name any names,
pro tem.
but when I visit lodges, certain ones, I'm always in a chair.
And there have been situations even at 148 where we've had to, pro tem EAs to do things, especially after COVID when the pickings were really slim.
I worked in like 10 degrees as an apprentice.
Yeah. Yeah,
It was great.
there was a lot of work that EAs could do, and but I suspect that has a lot to do with why the law actually changed, and that there was more of an emphasis in years past on lodges being more exclusive to master masons, and anyone who wasn't a master mason didn't get to participate.
Another thing about RE, well, do you have an update over there, Cody?
Well, I was looking when we're talking about Masonic funerals. This is Article 359, to whom extended. Grandmaster's decisions on that particular article extend up to Grandmaster's decision number 32 in 1973. So I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything super new on that one. It does say. Burial with Masonic ceremonies is a privilege which pertains to all Masons, including entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and master Masons, by virtue of their membership. Which is interesting because this kind of language here seems to contradict what we read, where it says that they
They're
are
not
Masons,
members.
but they're not members
Members of
of
a
that
lodge.
lodge. But when you read the language here in Article 359, the lodge is supposed to do those funerals on behalf of their members. So I can see, again, even just in this little kind of spelunking through the Grand Lodge law, where we have guys that are confused on, well, what exactly is a member, what is not.
I'm going to define it right here. You have a number in Grandview, and you're in good standing. You're a member.
Well, but I think that what Cody is kind of alluding to is it seems like our Grand Lodge law book is playing a little fast and loose with how they use the word member.
Right.
It sounds like in that second article that by virtue of their status as a Mason is what they mean.
Right.
Not by their membership.
Not by their membership. Because we also know that one of the things when we talk about membership is... Let's just address it. Master Masons are the ones that pay dues to the lodge, which when you pay dues, that's kind of what affords you your right to vote because you're paying for that one. Entered apprentices and fellow crafts don't pay dues to the lodge, and so again, let's just call it what it is. If you don't pay your dues, you don't get a vote.
That's also jurisdictional too, though. In Texas, they don't pay dues.
No, in Texas, and yes, I'm speaking tradition. I'm speaking right here about Texas Masons. So membership is also, I think, tied to the fact of if you're paying dues or not.
Contributing member to the Grand Lodge of Texas. That's what we'd like to qualify things with. Because if you're not raised, you're not a contributing member.
Well, but even then,
Technically, you already did donate
but
some
who's,
money.
But who's the members of the Grand Lodge? You have the voting members, which are past masters only. So even if you're a master mason, you're
And
contributing to the
sitting worshipful masters.
right. That's what I mean as well. But even when we go to vote, it says that all members of this grand jurisdiction may vote, or must vote. May vote. All members of this lodge must vote.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm screwing up the monitorial portion there, but that's part of what we say every time. And I still think that there's this very fast and loose idea of...
That's another funny thing, though, is, a master mason from another lodge can come and 10 of them can show up and just totally shoot down your election.
Right.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, another lodge could come in and ostensibly come in and decide your elections for you.
Their charter starts vibrating on the wall when they do that, and it's going to fall eventually, but it does happen.
I can also show up somewhere and I don't know, stab 10 tires with a knife if I want to.
Well, but I think the difficulty is that with that situation specifically, Brandy, is that Grand Lodge law allows for, let's say, Lodge XYZ to come to 148, and if they have enough members, they can vote whomever they want.
However, the worshipful master can just close the lodge at that moment, and it nullifies everything. So there is a checks and balance for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, is that the Grand Lodge law does allow for that sort of behavior to happen, whether we like it or not. There are ways to prevent it.
And there are good reasons for it to happen.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that those reasons have been reinforced in the, several...
But 30 entered apprentices can't show up and do it.
Right, exactly.
I will say during this conversation, I came up with a great idea for us to do some fundraising for the lodge. How about if I just start reading the Grand Lodge law like ASMR, and people can like
Pay you to stop.
they can either pay me to stop or they can go to sleep with it.
Oh, next day of meeting, you're gonna keep reading until everybody donates $20.
Oh. I
or
guess.
until you get gavelled down by the worshipful master.
I'm not doing it. It's my idea.
Oh, we're gonna. What is the term when you're like grandstanding in Congress and all of that? Filibuster.
Yes.
We're gonna filibuster
With Grand
reading
Lodge
the
law.
Grand Lodge law. Ain't that fun?
Yeah, you better make sure you bring your astronaut diaper, though.
I can assure you this will never happen because I'm a picture of efficiency.
Yes, you are.
But by the way, Grand Lodge law ASMR copyright Cody Cox 2025. Thank you kindly.
A nickel every time somebody does it.
Not running for
So
office.
you're gonna have to get your little fingers and tap on
yeah,
the
I'm gonna have to
microphones.
do all that fun stuff, and people are
Yeah.
gonna be going to sleep and like they're gonna be learning Grand Lodge law through osmosis.
Great. That's what we need more of.
Speaking of ASMR, this is a good segue. Our brother at B&B likes doing ASMR videos on espresso, and he just started roasting coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, one of our members at Fort Worth 148 owns a meadery and is also
In the coffee roasting now.
now doing coffee roasting and selling coffee and espresso beans. And yeah, great company. I think we've got a bottle of his mead on the table right now. His Fate of the Gods mead. If you've been to Fort Worth 148, we've had several events where he has donated the toasting
Festive boards.
festive board toasting ritual juice that we toast with. And I think most people had never had mead until that particular
It
event.
has a lot more kick than Manischewitz. Let's put it that way.
And a lot more flavor, if I do say so myself. Because I don't think most people expect it to be, I know whenever I was growing up and I was,
thought it was
reading fantasy,
weird
like
stuff those LARPers
dwarves
drank.
drinking mead and Vikings drinking mead. I was thinking of it as, like this really
Like
stout.
grog.
Yeah, like grog or like, very,
lot of it
very
is.
Guinness adjacent. And then all of a sudden I taste, mead for the first time and I'm like, wow, this is very light and refreshing. I didn't expect that.
Had I known we were going this direction, I got about 15 different versions of meat at the house we could sample.
Yeah,
Stay
eventually
tuned
maybe
for another podcast.
Yeah,
Fort Worth 148 tries lots of meads.
yeah, that'll be fun on the radio.
That goes off the rails quickly.
Right. So, but at any rate, if you are a brother or just a listener and you were interested in sampling this amazing, honey wine mead, or you want to try out their
Enjoy the labors of millions of bees.
enjoy the labors of the bees and the coffee growers from around the world.
Billions of yeast cells.
Yes, billions of microorganisms have worked together to create this amazing, flavorful cacophony that we all know and love. But if you are interested, Brandy is going to share with you the website that you can go to. It's a great organization, B and Brew Brewery here in Fort Worth, made in
meadery.
Texas. It's a meadery, excuse me. And
I believe the coffee part version is a BB espresso.
yes,
I'm not sure if that's licensed yet or not, but that's what he's doing.
awesome.
So this is a side project, and he's good at it. So
Yeah, so go to their website and check them out.
And
They
the
are-
website is www.b, that's B-E-E, and brew.com.
beandbrew.com. Reserve your bottle of mead today.
if you've ever gone to a farmer's market and you saw the guy selling the really cool horns, it was probably him.
Yeah, he's been at the Dallas Farmers Market. He's been at several markets around Texas, several big events throughout the state, and other places as well.
And so to all of our listeners out there, I say skål.
Ships to, 48 states.
Yeah,
Just get our facts on that. It ships all over the country.
yeah, he ships to basically anywhere where they allow where they're
If you can get wine shipped, you can get meat shipped.
right. Anywhere that will allow him to ship, he is shipping. So if you, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that he will not be allowed to ship to North Korea. Sorry. But if you
We
are,
still want a picture.
But if you were somewhere here in Texas or in one of the surrounding states or many of the other 50 states of the United States. Most of the states he ships to, so you can check his website and for shipping.
Definitely Canada and probably Italy,
Yes,
because I think he might be there right now.
yes. And congratulations, Chris, on your recent engagement.
Hey, congrats.
Congrats.
And I have your dues card in my wallet still.
So that is a word from our sponsor today, B&Brew.
Sort of sponsor, maybe.
Sort of, kind of.
We got a discount on the bottle.
Hey,
Right?
it's right here with us.
It's right here.
But speaking of weird things that are happening overseas, not that Chris being overseas is weird because he's there all the time, but Brandy, you were talking about something that's kind of brewing over across the pond. So
we don't talk about the Grand Lodge of England very much, the United Grand Lodge of England. So there's a new Morgan affair that's come up, and there's actually a Netflix show about it, which I didn't realize till I just Googled it. It's the Daniel Morgan affair. He was an officer. They called him a detective. My terminology's wrong. He was a police officer that got tragically murdered in a park. And the investigation was allegedly taken over and maybe obstructed by officers that were members of a certain fraternity. And again, some of this is hearsay. I don't have the facts in front of me, but you can research it. Look up the Daniel Morgan affair. But the crust of it is the Metropolitan Police Department, is discussing anyone that's a Freemason may have to actually announce that they're a Freemason before they can join the police force. It's a huge thing. I mean, do you really want your employer knowing you're a Freemason? Depends on where you are. That you might not get a job, you might get fired. Especially if certain religions are part of your organization. That could be a really bad thing. But you should have freedom to join fraternities if you want to, because that's what we are. But this Morgan affair could be a bigger deal. There's a European Council on Human Rights that's backing the Grand Lodge, and even more amazing is the Grand Lodge of Scotland is joined on their side. So we actually have like the United Grand Lodge of England with Scotland now. They're on this one issue.
Yeah, other things they're somewhat separated on.
Not so in the same.
There's some enmity there, I'm just going to say.
Yeah, it's just an interesting article. We're trying to find topics we haven't talked about. And we have our own American Morgan affair, which is also Canadian, allegedly, because that's might have been where he went. So they have theirs now. It's just irony that's a Morgan affair.
Well, one of the things that immediately cropped into my mind whenever we started talking about this was the levels of information that are available about us as Freemasons across the state. How much information do we want the general public to know about our Masonic, memberships and such? I know that we already have protections in Grand Lodge law for our entered apprentice and fellow crafts. The photographs can't be taken that identify them as members just yet, because they're not members, but also there are concerns that they might not want their information or membership or affiliation with our organization to be made public.
Just tip for lodges that do degrees and they do photos. No aprons, and you're fine. Don't name them as a member anywhere, and you're fine.
In other words, they can be in the picture, just no aprons. Don't list their name and things like that.
But still, there's obviously some concern about people's affiliation with our organization. We're already kind of thinking about those things as inner apprentices and fellow crafts. How much, though, would we want our membership as Freemasons available, let's say, for a Freedom of Information Act request? Because if according to what's going on, if something very similar to what's going on in England right now or surrounding this event, I'm not sure exactly how much of it is still kind of bubbling up there at present, but let's say that something like that happened here in the Grand Lodge of Texas, and we had to disclose our membership, and our lodges were required to turn over a list of active dues-paying members to the state, because that would be a state piece of information that would be subject to Freedom of Information Act requests.
Right. Sounds like something that would happen in like 1937 Germany.
It feels very invasive, if you ask me, because it's not that I've got Masonic tattoos on my body. I wear my Masonic ring everywhere I go. I have hats and other, pins and things all over. I've got a bumper sticker, like 3 of them. Everybody knows
I'm the
who comes into contact with me that
exact
I'm a
opposite.
Freemason.
I have nothing.
Right. But there are people who are more private with their membership, and there are people who are more public with their membership. And to force them to be open about their membership, I think is a little bit of a problem. What do you guys think about that?
I hate the idea that I would be on a list as being a member of a fraternity that could be used negatively against me. Perfect example. I can't talk about it. We have an appendant body, and there's one particular person that is a huge fan of something in this appendant body, and every person that's ever had their name listed in a phone book for this appendant body gets texts from this person. And it's not that they're trying to be scary or dangerous. It's just, who is this person and why do they care about these signs? And you know what I'm talking about immediately.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I've gotten those texts before. And it's one of those things. This is kind of I don't want to say a weird topic to talk about because it's not. It's something that needs to be talked about.
Change this to somebody that has negative opinions of us and wants to use it against us.
And wants to use this against us. What I was going to say is I think when we're talking about this, for some of us, it might be a little bit something we haven't thought about before because we're so used to wearing a ring, having something on our truck or our car. We are very open here in Texas and across the United States. We're very open with our membership. But we've gotten kind of lax with that because maybe we also need to think about our brothers in other places where they can't be so lax.
Well, but here I think the real issue for me at least is how up in arms or how bajiggity can we really get about our membership being made public if on Facebook at any given moment any one of us somebody could find a picture of us on Facebook or on social media, Instagram, on the internet somewhere, take a screenshot of it and use that same information even if it wasn't a government list or turned over to the government.
It's
that
almost
information is still available.
Well, it's the idea of our choice being taken. Do we have the choice to disclose or not to disclose?
But at what point does previous disclosure?
But you can lock down your profile where you can't be tagged.
You're right. You absolutely can. There are steps that you can take to protect your information.
But they can still name you in a photo.
Yeah, you can still arbitrarily get named in a photo by someone else who just sees you in a photo.
My face when I was in the Corvettes, I did one of the Christmas parades, and my face was the front page of the local newspaper.
Right.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's awesome, but holy cow, that's kind of scary too.
To think that everybody
that's
saw
ultimately
you.
my point, is that how many of us have thought about that? And then, when we take photos with our lodge after dinner or after a degree, or it gets posted on Facebook or, on our lodge, newsletter, or however you communicate, we are taking photos and offering up our membership in this organization all the time. And then when we start talking about the government doing it, it suddenly becomes a little problematic. And I understand it's very Orwellian and it's very 1984, all those things, but is it really any different than what we're already doing?
What's the double-edged sword? You got to advertise, but you don't want your private business being advertised.
But if that's my point, is how private is it if you're taking pictures with your organization and putting it all over social media and all over your website? And
what's to stop somebody from going through our parking lot and taking pictures of our license plates?
And ultimately my point,
which that's actually how the Klan members got found too.
Well, and that's, but I don't think that the Klan was running around, taking pictures of their organization with their hat,
No, they definitely weren't. But people would go to meetings and take pictures of license plates and assume they're members of this organization, and turns out a lot of them really were.
But that's kind of my point, is that there's a certain amount of privacy that you expect, going around in the world.
Right. We don't advertise when we're meeting.
Yeah. Well, we do, but
even when we're talking about privacy,
Grand Lodge website.
And even when we're talking about privacy, we really need to also think about the world in which we live in. the privacy of the we'll even say the privacy of the 1980s and the 1990s is not the privacy of today, because we are surrounded by cameras, we're surrounded by social media, people on their phones taking pictures, things like that. So maybe another thing here that we can kind of think about is, as Masons, have we taken the time to really think about how private do we want to be with our membership? How public do we want to be with our membership? But also thinking about the idea of again, where we live at in the time, how private can we be,
Well, here's I think where I'm trying to like tease out these different ideas, because I feel like that there's a little, even in our conversation between the three of us, there's a little bit of ideas being kind of overlapping and becoming conflated. There is a certain amount of all three of us have been splashed all over social media with our 148 membership.
We're intentionally doing it right now.
Yeah,
We're-
and
we're
we are
marketing.
splashing. So that is, we're already doing it. And even members who are not doing podcasts in our lodge, like they're all over social media. Texas Freemasons is full of people who post, photos on their lodge, social media pages and on their lodge websites, et cetera, et cetera. My point is that do we really have a leg to stand on when a government comes in and says we want your membership, to say, oh, now we suddenly have privacy concerns? Because I don't know very many Masons of our lodge, personally, of our 148. There might be lodges elsewhere in more rural areas where it's where privacy is a little bit stronger, and maybe that's more of a concern for them. But here in DFW, if you are going to any lodge, there's going to be photos all over the place. And do we really have a leg to stand on when we start decrying, oh, I want my privacy, but my picture's all over the internet with my brothers?
So basically, we're talking about like Freemasons being like Prince Harry. I want my privacy, but I'm also a member of the royal family type thing.
Right. And
Yeah.
I also love the fact that I'm a celebrity.
That's
that
right.
sort of thing. So I don't have if the government put my name on a list of known Freemasons in the state of Texas.
I love how Evie just said, if the government put my name on a list. You're already on a list. We know.
I'm on a list for a lot of many
all
and
three of
sundry,
us are on a
various
list.
and sundry reasons.
You got to define government at that point.
But let's say the state government, federal government. It doesn't really matter. Let's just say that our state government said, Grand Lodge of Texas, give us a list of all the dues-paying members in the state of Texas, and my name ended up on that list.
Well, you're a board member of a 501c.
Well, but ultimately my point is,
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's not going to change my life, because even if there are anti-Masonic organizations out there, that don't like me as a Freemason, it's not going to affect me in any way, shape, or form.
Right. You're not trying to be a detective for the Metropolitan Police Department.
Right. And I have no conflict of interest. And anytime that there has been a conflict of interest, I've always disclosed any memberships of organizations I'm a part of, so that people can go in fully aware of all of those things.
But
whenever I got my last job as a pastor, that was one of the things that I disclosed. So they know full well that if you want to hire me, this is who I am. I'm not hiding anything about it. But I know that there are some people whose jobs might be affected. For instance, if you happen to be a judicial officer or a lawyer or a CPA or an elected official, something like that, those sorts of memberships might become inconvenient for you, even if you are public with that information.
When you're talking about this, I think for myself, and I'm speaking for myself, in the idea of, should a government know that I'm a member of the fraternity? What I would say is I have no problem with them knowing, because again, as you've alluded to, Evie, I've had the my picture on Facebook. It's on there. It's out there. So I have no problem with that. My problem would start to be, where does this become a slippery slope? If the government can start requiring you to tell to be on a list because you're a member of a fraternity, then when are they going to require me to be on a list because I'm a member of the Methodist Church? When are they going to require me to be on a list because I enjoy a certain genre of book? And I know that sounds silly, but again, that's the whole idea of slippery slope. If it doesn't seem this bad at this point, when is it going to seem bad? So with that, I would say I'm okay with my information being out there because I'm the one that's put it out there. But if it became a requirement, that's why I have an issue.
Absolutely, and I don't want to. I'm playing a little bit of as a devil's advocate here. I don't want anyone to think for a moment that I think that it's a good idea that a government starts like calling up the Grand Lodge and saying, we want a list of your members. I would be the first person in line to say that that's super creepy and the government shouldn't be doing that, even if I personally put all of my information out there on the internet for my membership.
Ick factor 500.
Yeah, there are so many slippery slope issues that you're alluding to. But I also think that it is kind of, in the one hand, kind of silly to start saying, oh, privacy, when you're not really all that concerned about privacy. You know what I mean?
We have members that are, though.
Yeah, and then their privacy, like any member of 148 who doesn't want to be in a picture, doesn't have to be in a picture. We never bully them or make them feel like they need to be.
I've sat in lodge with someone that was literally at the White House the next weekend at the State of the Union address.
Yeah.
And he was from a country that we don't have relations with. It's a great story, but I can't tell you who it is because he would get murdered.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's lots of things like that. But again, those are all outside jurisdictional issues, not internal. What I'm really talking about here and what our focus is today is what happens when Texas starts doing that, or whenever, the government of the Texas. I don't think the government of the state of Texas would ever do something like that.
For us, it'd be the city of Fort Worth if we're doing a parallel.
Yeah, it would be much more of like a city requires it, or I think it's much more likely that there is some federal registry rather than a state, because I think Texas would be very resistant to that idea just as a government anyway.
Considering half the leaders are Freemasons.
Right. And Freemasonry is such an important part of the history of our state.
Half's
uniquely.
Probably a large exaggeration. Several are. Not going to name them, though, because I respect their privacy.
Right. And if they want to be public about it, they can be public. They can name themselves. I'm not gonna name them.
Well, and ultimately, I think the other thing is, as a Mason, I have chosen to hitch my wagon to this, and it's something that I'm proud of. I have no problem with people knowing that I'm a Freemason. This is what I believe, because it truly is part of who Cody Cox is. With that being said, again, the idea of I am freely giving that information, but then to be required by someone outside of my circle to disclose that information, that's where the problem comes down to. Is right there.
If you had to wear a square and compass patch on your chest everywhere you went, that would be a problem.
Yeah, last time that people had to wear patches because of their, I don't know, religious beliefs or, their Masonic beliefs or things like that.
Freemasons were one of the groups that was involved in the Holocaust as well. History kind of forgets those other groups that were not necessarily just Jewish.
Right. So the thing about it is that we have a pattern in history. So I think it's important, now that we're starting to see some of this stuff kind of bubble to the surface, that we as a fraternity be vigilant and, still be proud of who we are, but also be vigilant in the fact that,
resist stupid things like that we know are just bad ideas.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think I'm just going to say it. It is a really bad idea that England or any community around the world in a free-thinking society would require members to disclose their affiliations to Masonry specifically. I think that's just such a stupid bad idea. But.
And that's where we also should be very thankful for where we live, what we the freedoms that we experience, and for us to also think about our brethren all over the globe that couldn't sit in a place and discuss these things openly, in kind of an open forum.
Yeah, and I also want to add that I think one of the things that is different about the United States specifically, maybe even Texas, even more so, but the United States specifically, is that we have a constitution that protects our right to free assembly. We can choose to associate with whomever we want, whenever we want, and however we want, and that is a protected behavior in our country. And I don't believe, I could be wrong because I'm not an expert on English law, but based on their ability to infringe on things like freedom of speech in England, I'm pretty sure that there are limitations on their ability to free association as well. So while England has the ability to maybe infringe on what we would call rights, I think here in the United States it would be a much harder stretch for our government to insist that we disclose our membership without there being some really, really strong, compelling
First,
reason.
they'd have to find the address to mail the letter to make the request, because it's not going to be online.
Right. Well, and
That's
yeah.
a little bit of a sarcasm. There's a lot of pen and paper masons out there still.
Yeah, well, and
Exactly.
and that's great. Yeah, we know way too many of them, I think.
By the way, I just happened to notice we're having this discussion about freedom, and I see Brother George Washington. I have a portrait of George Washington here in my garage, and he's actually staring
Cody,
at us.
you gave away the location of our secret lair.
Oh, excuse me. Never mind. All I will say one thing, by the way, when we're talking about freedoms, is remember the last time that Masons were told, like, hey, you can't do this, we kind of got angry and started throwing barrels of
Those
tea.
were Native Americans, sir.
Nah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
oh yeah,
badly,
I forgot
badly
about
disguised.
that. Yeah.
The worst disguises ever. Have y'all seen those paintings, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Those are the worst. I hope that those...
Rate my costume.
The worst
negative
Halloween.
3 out of 10.
Right.
July 4th, 1770.
I mean, that was such a
Something
terrible, terrible, terrible costume. Anyway, yeah, I think that you're right in many regards, though, that this is Freemasons are targets of many conspiracy theories that are kind of silly and stupid. We are anybody who's ever Googled or read anything about the protocols of the Elders of Zion knows that the Freemasons are stupidly in that document, that forged document, by the way. It's a fake document, but there are all of these weird conspiracy theories about us anyway that make us quasi-targets. I think here in the United States and in Texas specifically, we're not as big of a target, but
No.
there are quadrants of the United States and elsewhere in the world where being a Freemason and being that information being required to be disclosed would put a target on our backs.
And let's go to the next level. When we think about that idea of, if you come into the fraternity, if you come into the Freemasonry, into the fraternity, and again, like I said earlier, you hook your wagon to it, understand that there are going to be some times where, again, that whole idea of free thinking, you're going to have to practice that. This isn't just we're not just a bunch of guys that are sitting around, reading minutes and talking about green beans. Some of us are really trying to get back to the idea of being free thinkers and having, discourse with each other and things like that. And we're going to find that people, when you start practicing that free thinking, when you start doing that kind of stuff, there are people that aren't going to like that. And they're going to try and find ways to infringe upon that.
And that's, maybe this is going down a rabbit hole that this particular podcast, we can maybe table it for another conversation. But isn't it funny how, at least growing up for me, I felt like I wanted to be a free thinker because there were so many people out in the world that were free thinkers that really thought deeply and broadly about ideas and subjects. And I thought that, that was what adulthood was, that you developed this ability to think for yourself. And I don't know if I'm the only one that experiences this, but does it feel like that there's not very many free thinkers out in this world?
I think it's what you're talking about is the idea that as a young person, you're looking and thinking about the freedoms that you're going to have as an adult, and you feel like once I get older, I'll be able to make up my mind for myself and those types of things. And then when you become an adult and you start looking at people that are your same age or maybe a little bit older or just a little bit younger, you start going, wow, you don't think for yourself at all.
Right. You are part of an echo chamber that is just, and it's getting, no big surprise. I think everybody hears this. The echo chambers are getting bigger, and just as big as the big tents are getting bigger, so are the big echo chambers. So
Mine wasn't really free thinking so much as it's, why can that person do this and I can't? I guess it is free thinking, but I'm always thought that I was smarter and better than that person that I wanted to do their job. So I got to the point where I did their job. Then I realized, well, it wasn't that good in the first place.
right, you suddenly realize that it didn't take that much
Yeah.
effort.
Well,
So maybe I should have been a free thinker.
And one of
Right.
the things that we're kind of talking about here with growing up, wanting to be part of the fraternity, when I started thinking in my older years, about becoming a Freemason, I started thinking about guys like George Washington and the founders of the country and those political revolutionaries and thinkers of the Enlightenment period and things like that. And those are guys that I want to be like. I want to start thinking about those difficult issues that they were talking about.
And just for context, most of those people spoke French and Latin. They read philosophers and political theorists like Voltaire. They were well read, they were well educated, and they were diversely educated. And that's one of the things that I think is largely missing in our public sphere now is the breadth of education that people are exposed to. I mean, how many people...
You have a public educator at the
I
table. I
challenge-
don't
I know.
I challenge George Washington to a pivot table contest right now.
To a what?
Pivot table.
What's a pivot
Excel.
table?
Oh God!
Oh,
Oh God!
Excel.
No! But the idea that
Holy schmoly.
He didn't even know what a pivot table was.
I had no idea.
yikes! Oh, that's right.
There was no context for you to understand it. So it's
Right.
like,
I use Excel, just not like that.
Right, but like what I was saying here is that with my membership in the fraternity, part of the reason that I came to the fraternity was because I wanted to emulate those guys.
Absolutely.
That's why I ask the questions that I do. Heck, that's why I'm on this podcast, because I like the fact that when the three of us or the four of us or the five of us get together, I feel like we're getting some of that discussion in, and I feel like I'm slowly ascending to that level right there. With those guys, why can't Freemasons be the great thinkers and shakers like they were back then?
I think we are.
I think largely we are too. I
But
agree with that.
I also think that we need to market. Obviously, we have freedom of speech in the United States, but we don't have freedom from being attacked for speech. You do within the Blue Lodge, because we respect your opinion regardless if it's dumb or not. I mean,
Right.
we listen to it. We're going to advise you maybe to change it and make it more palatable, but you literally have free speech. That's why we do what we do. You have the right to say whatever you want to anyone, and no negative repercussions, essentially.
I mean, I suppose there are a couple of that I can think of that
Well,
might be problematic.
You might get less work down the road.
but- right. This is
Right.
true.
It's a big. Why do you want it? Why do you want the chairs? It's a real job.
Right. Yeah, I think that you're right, Brandy. That Freemasonry is one place where,
But it's also why it's threatened.
yeah, it's one of the sacred spaces where you can really explore any idea openly and candidly, and not fear reprisal for the most part. I mean, obviously, if you said that every person that is labeled X should be executed, you're not going to go very far in a lodge, and you probably won't be a member for very much longer. But for the most part, if there's an idea that needs to be explored,
But if you can find that
Freemasonry can do it.
If you can find that lodge in North Korea in Pyongyang, you can speak on the level with the members in Pyongyang without fear of repercussion.
Unless the fearless leader is there.
I don't think he's a member.
I don't think he is either.
Yeah.
But he might be the one listening.
I'm going to be Pollyanna and say that he is a member. I'm just going to say it.
But would you want him to be?
Oh, I think it would be cool.
That is their own jurisdiction. They can do what they want.
Well, they
Exactly.
But their charter would be from China.
But seriously, would you want him to be?
No.
Exactly. That's ultimately my point. Would it be cool?
It would be cool. It'd be scary.
Be cool. It would be scary as heck.
He would be the Illuminati, and we just point everything his way.
Yeah.
That's the guy you want.
But ultimately, getting back to what we were talking about with what's going on in England, those types of things, is that with the privacy issues, and what we were just talking about of being the movers and the shakers and stuff like that. What I would say is the idea that, yeah, there's privacy. I would prefer it to where I'm the person that determines the privacy, not someone else. And that's not the role of the government. The government should not be coming in, taking my privacy for no apparent reason.
I want to research it more, but I know the Grand Lodge of California is they're making it more secure. It's like it's your personal app to join their lodge versus using Grandview. And I need to be an authority on it before I bring it up. But the idea is really cool.
Yeah, we were talking about that just a little bit about how can Grand Lodge secure information, and maybe this is a topic for a future podcast. Maybe even we can get some guests on the show from Grand Lodge about how Grand Lodge shares information, what information it shares, because we know I don't mean to pop anybody's bubble out there, but if you're a Freemason in the state of Texas, your information is getting shared by the Grand Lodge with certain other organizations and entities that you may or may not be aware that it's being shared with. It's not nefarious and it's not gross or anything like that. It makes perfect sense for them to share that information, but it's being shared. So it would be nice to have conversations surrounding that, especially in light of this Grand Lodge of England thing. So. Well, gentlemen, I think that kind of naturally brings our conversation for this evening to a close. It is a lovely October night here in lovely Fort Worth. The weather is mild. We are sitting outside mostly and enjoying the sun that has gone down and the chill in the air as fall is upon us.
80-degree chill.
Right. This is my time of year. This is when my soul sings.
We also enjoy 3 days of fall in Texas.
This is like day one.
The trees still have all the leaves.
Yes.
If you've ever seen Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail, then you know that Texas weather is much like the weather in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where winter just goes straight to summer, forgets fall, and then goes back to spring, and then
it is very gross. So to be able to sit out here like this is quite nice.
If I've got an international trip planned that I have to fly, it's going to be snowy and icy. Every time.
Yeah, I would much rather go to a place that's cold.
I'm just saying, anytime I plan a trip internationally, DFW gets shut down. So it's me.
Oh, yeah. Well, then
so
I'm going to have you travel
curse.
more because
okay.
I love cold weather. I would much rather be cold than
So what I hear
hot.
you saying is Fort Worth 148, our next trip is to Reykjavik.
Yeah, I would totally be that. Or Anchorage. I'm not sure which. Whichever one.
I'll be in Aruba next week.
So
enjoy the cold weather while I'm gone.
Bless your heart. Well, gentlemen, thank you all for listening to us for our podcast. We also want to give a big thanks to our unofficial, hope to be official sponsor of the Fort Worth 148 podcast, Bee and Brew. Please go check them out at beeandbrew.com for their amazing meat offerings, and they're soon. If they're not already offering it online, I think that they soon will be the coffee offerings.
The coffee's available, and he's got different packages of it.
Yes. I knew it was coming. I wasn't sure if it was out yet. So
he's still got a lot of marketing ideas.
Yeah, and if you happen to make your way over to their website, let them know that Fort Worth 148 Masonic Podcast sent you, and tell them we said hello, and thanks for the great work that he's doing. So that brings our conversation to a close. If you have feedback, make sure that you're commenting and liking and subscribing on whatever podcast app you happen to be consuming your media on. Leave a comment. Tell us how we're doing. Let us know if you agree with what we're talking about. Let us know what your thoughts are on privacy and what Grand Lodge should be sharing and not sharing.
Give us more topics.
Give us more topics. If you have a topic that you want us to talk about,
If you want to be a guest.
if you want to be a guest, if you know somebody who might be interested in being a guest, we are always looking for new people to talk about and talk to. We've really worn this North Korea connection out. I think it's becoming kind of a running joke.
It's a very one-way relationship right now.
It is. I would love for that person because it's pretty consistent. I mean,
is.
somebody from North Korea is listening to us.
There's going to be a giant missile that lands in your yard.
Right.
It's not going to blow up, though.
It's not.
They didn't test it.
By the way, we are podcasting from Dallas, not
Yes.
Fort Worth, just so you know.
East of 360 is where we're always from.
Right. So thanks, gentlemen, for listening to us. Thanks for making us part of your day. We hope that you have a great Masonic day. This is Evie Kirkendall signing off.
This is Brandy Patton signing off.
And this is Cody Cox signing off.